everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's virtual roundtable at Buddhaland, Mental Wellbeing and Spiritual Growth in Today's World. I'm Stacy, the founder of Buddhaland, and your moderator today. We're delighted to have all of you with us. Now, a brief overview of today's flow. We'll begin with short introductions of each panelist and an opening question, followed by a guided conversation among the panel. We will then open the floor to audience questions towards the end. Thank you again for being here. Let's begin. Our first speaker today is Father Reginald Chua. Father Reginald is a Chinese-Australian Catholic priest from the Dominican Order. Reginald's work sits at the meeting point of philosophy, contemplative practice, and the search for meaning. In recent years, he has accompanied student communities as a university chaplain, supporting young adults as they navigate questions of purpose and well-being. Now based at Blackfriars in Oxford, he is completing doctoral research on the nature of being and identity in a rapidly changing world. He has interests in Buddhist-Christian dialogue and interfaith conversations, reading novels and listening to the 90s music. Father Reginald, welcome. Could you please share a bit more about the Dominican Order, how it differs from other orders, and how it has shaped your own spiritual journey?
Hi, Stacy. Thanks so much. I'm so honored to be part of this conversation. And as you said, I'm a Dominican. And it's hard to know where to start about what makes this Dominican order distinctive. There's quite a few things. For example, we have our own distinctive liturgy, the Dominican Rite. We also have a distinctive structure of our community life. And then there's also all these different orders in the Catholic Church, like the Franciscans and the Jesuits. So there's all these different kind of contrasts. One thing that perhaps would be nice to share, just for the context of this dialogue, is a very interesting story from the life of St. Dominic, and I think it captures what the order's charism is. So St. Dominic, for those who don't know, he was a Spanish Catholic priest from medieval Spain, from a Catholic family. We don't know a lot about how he grew up, but the fact that he became a priest suggests to me that probably he wasn't a very rebellious person, right? He followed the faith of his family. And I think at that time, and I think this is also true today, sometimes if you're part of a very close-knit religious community, sometimes it's possible to live your whole life without meeting someone from another faith or religious background. And so one very big moment actually for St. Dominic in his life is when he had the first recorded encounter with someone from another faith. And he was sent by his bishop to go on priest business. He was going from Spain to Denmark. And so to go from Spain to Denmark, you have to go through France. And so St. Dominic is traveling in France and he meets someone from the Cathari. So this is another religion, sometimes called the Gnostic kind of spirituality. And this conversation with the Cathari, it inspires quite a big life change for him because he starts a new religious order. And this order actually adapts some of the practices from the Cathari. So, for example, vegetarianism, there's also the practice of poverty, which was quite radical for Catholic priests at the time. And then itinerancy, so not living just in a monastery or in a church house, but moving from place to place, sometimes between countries. And so I find this whole encounter very interesting, right? Because St. Dominic's response to this interreligious encounter is it doesn't make him angry. It doesn't make him leave the church either. There's this kind of openness to dialogue, which I think characterizes the Dominican order. And the name of the order is actually not the Dominican order, strictly speaking. It's actually the order of preachers. So it does start from this conviction that that Christianity, Jesus Christ, is the, you might say, the spiritual way. But there's also this joy in that encounter of Christ that is worth sharing joyfully with other people. And then there's another aspect of the order, which is the study of truth. So another motto of the Dominican Order is veritas, which is Latin for just for truth. And so the thing I find very interesting about truth and the search for truth is that when it's done well, it can be democratic, right? It can be this kind of shared process of truth seeking with anyone and everyone. And so for St. Dominic, there's another story is that he was staying overnight at a pub, and then the innkeeper was from this other religion, the Cathari. And then they stay up talking all night. And then according to this story, by dawn, the bartender decides to become Catholic. There are other stories where St. Dominic has debates with other people and no one's mind gets changed. But there is this kind of importance of debate and conversation. And so one of these debates, which I think is actually still relevant today, is, of course, who is the person of Jesus Christ, but also what's the nature of good and evil, and how do we reconcile this? And so for this religion, the Cathari, I think it's also a very popular view that evil and good are these equal cosmic forces in the world, you might say, and that they're kind of in a balance. And from a Christian perspective, St. Dominic's kind of alternate view is that perhaps in a mysterious way, everything can actually be seen as good, and that in some sense, evil is ultimately not real. And so there are these Dominican arguments for this, metaphysical view, which I won't go into now. But from a Christian perspective, there is a way to not deny evil or to be in denial about the existence of evil, but to see the world in a deep metaphysical sense as, in some sense, fundamentally good. That perhaps it originates and leads to pure love. And so this is one of the convictions that Dominic had. Still remains one of the core Christian claims, I think, about spiritual experience. And then just in terms of my own journey, I think I could say that my own spiritual experience, it does contain a lot of uncertainty or ambivalence, which you might not expect for someone who's a Catholic priest. But I think that's just a very common experience of spirituality. And my decision to be a Dominican and to commit to this way of life, for me, it wasn't from some kind of big spiritual experience of enlightenment. Perhaps it was more like this kind of story of St. Dominic of encountering different worldviews and questioning and being drawn in a particular direction. And so my experience of Dominican spirituality, you might say, is that, and the Catholic Church, is that it can be a place where, in some sense, uncertainty and questioning happens, in fact, in a more free way than perhaps some other places. Because I think this is also one aspect of spiritual faith, that it can actually open up fruitful questioning rather than closing down questions. So that's one reason why I'm so happy to be part of this conversation today and to be able to join you and the other panelists.
Thank you so much, Father Reginald, for the beautiful insight and for your honesty. So next up is Professor David Palmer. Dr. David A. Palmer is a professor of anthropology at the University of Hong Kong. He is author of several award-winning books on Daoism and on religious transformations in modern China, and teaches courses on spirituality, religion, and wealth. As convener of the Asian Religious Connections Research Cluster of the University of Hong Kong, over the past years, he has engaged in exchanges and research on religions throughout Asia. As elected member of the Spiritual Assembly of the Bahá'ís of Hong Kong, he is active in interfaith dialogues and in exploring the empowerment of communities through the application of spiritual principles. David, welcome. You have worked closely with both Daoism and the Bahá'í faith. How are they similar or different, and how do you navigate the space between academic research and personal belief?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Stacy, and also I'm most delighted and honored to take part in this conversation. And I see that the members of this conversation are coming from, they're literally now in different parts of the world at different times, and also from different spiritual and religious traditions. So in this gathering, we're literally at one moment bringing together so many different people. And in doing so, we are manifesting what could be said to be the core of the teachings of the Baha'i faith, which is to bring forth the oneness of humanity. I don't know if everybody here is familiar with actually either the Daoism or the Baha'i faith, so I'll talk a little bit about both, and actually to pick up on Father Chua. My own journey also has been one of travels, journeys, and encounters. I was born in Canada. I've also lived a good part of my life in France. And now I live in Hong Kong, China, and I've lived in mainland China for many years in Chengdu. Behind me on the screen is Qingchengshan, a Daoist holy mountain, which is near the city of Chengdu, where I lived for many years in the 1990s. Something that's always been of concern to me, I guess, because I'm half French and half English. And so my ancestors are two peoples who have fought together, who have had a lot of wars over history, and in Canada even have a whole history of conflict and reconciliation. And in my French family, I had Protestant and Catholic members who also killed each other during the history of our own family. So the notion of how can we come together as human beings, how can we overcome our differences, I think it's something that's always been a deep concern for me, even as I was a youth and as a teenager. And at one point, I wanted to even go beyond my own culture and my own civilization and to see what's going on and how do people think at the way other, the most farthest and distant, most the culture that would seem to be the most different from our Western culture, and that is China. And so that's what led me to go to, in the early 1990s, to go to China to learn both about China's ancient spiritual traditions and wisdom, and also to learn about a completely different socio-political system in contemporary China. And so I ended up becoming an anthropologist, and I teach in the sociology department here at the University of Hong Kong. So I study the transformations of modern societies and particularly look at the transformations of religion and spirituality in modern society. During that journey, I ended up meeting and engaging with people of many different spiritual and religious paths. And I ended up specializing in the academic study of Daoism, which is China's indigenous religion and spirituality, and actually practicing Daoist meditation and spiritual practices. At the same time, I ended up, in terms of my own religious faith and commitment, becoming a member of the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith, in contrast to Daoism, which is a very ancient religion, which maybe one could say goes back to the very dawn of Chinese culture and civilization, at least in an organized form, it has more than 2,500 years of history, or a little less. The Baha'i faith is a very young religion. It emerged in Iran in the mid to late 19th centuries. At that time, Baha'u'llah, living in a country which was riven by religious fanaticism and prejudice, where people of different religious communities in that part of the world never, they were lived in completely segregated conditions. Baha'u'llah said that now humanity is entering a profound transformation where all the different religions need to be recognized as coming from the same source, where men and women need to be understood as equal, where science and religion needs to progress in harmony, and where all humans are members of one country, we're all one family and citizens of the world. So in one sense, the Baha'i faith and Taoism, there's one thing that they have completely in common, which is the focus on oneness. in a sense, the purpose, the spiritual purpose, or the spiritual direction of Taoism is returning to one's consciousness and one's embodiment of the oneness of one's own body and the oneness of one's body and self with the entire cosmos, with the environment and with the entire universe. And so this notion that actually underlying all of the different beings in the world are flows of one energy that emanates from the Tao, from the ultimate way or the ultimate source of the universe. And so underlying all of this diversity, is all this life, and all of this life really emanates from and partakes of the same essence. And so a Taoist approach to life is one in which we tap into and become aware of and try to manifest this oneness. But this is a practice which, especially in the current era, is primarily focused on the body of the individual. Now, the Baha'i faith also focuses on oneness, and it would recognize and affirm many of the things that I said about Taoism. But the focus is really on building oneness at the level of society, at the level of community, society, and even trying to explore what kinds of forms of organization and even institutions humanity needs to be able to learn how to cooperate and to live together. So the focus of Baha'i spirituality, on the one hand, has the individual practice of prayer and living an ethical life, building a family, but also really engaging in a life of service to humanity, for thinking about how we can build community around ourselves, whether it's in our neighborhood or at our workplace or through our profession, to work on building communities where people can communicate and where people can build unity and diversity, where they can, all of their diverse capacities and talents, all of their different views and perspectives can come together and can lead to a higher form of unity. And so this really, for me, it really speaks to what Father Chua was saying early, the notion of seeking after truth through, in the Baha'i faith, what is called consultation, the idea that everybody has unique perspectives on the world. And so it's only by bringing all different people together in a discussion where people aren't trying to force their views on others, but are sharing their views as a gift. And then all of these views come together. They clash, there might be flames, but at the end, there will be a new form, there will be a new knowledge or new consciousness that arises from that consultation. So, yeah. Oh, and then you wanted to, you were asking about academic work and spiritual life. I'm actually, right, so I'm an academic scholar of religion, a sociologist and anthropologist, and in these fields in particular, there's a very critical, one could say, approach to religion and to spirituality, and I've written many books using these approaches. Some might say that there's a strong tension then between living a spiritual life and these kind of academic approaches. And even there's a so-called insider-outsider problem in religious studies, right? But, and certainly there is a tension, but I think this is a tension that is natural and it exists between any spiritual path and any form of life in this world, any form of professional life or career life, that we live in social structures and institutions that are currently designed to, basically their foundation is designed to stimulate the lower side of our nature, our greed, our competitiveness, our ego, our pride. So all of these dimensions, which are lower dimensions, are actually the ones that are being activated or stimulated through whatever it is, the academic system, the business system, whatever system we actually happen to be working in professionally, is based on that. And so there's always this kind of tension. And so then there are two things that we can do, and this is, I think, a very important part, or there are three approaches that one could take spiritually. One is to just try to how to kind of be detached within that world, but keep your balance and your sense of serenity within that environment. Another approach is to try to improve that environment, to align it more, at least the immediate environment, with spiritual principles. And a third approach is actually to try to build forms of social life that are based on spiritual principles rather than based on the lower side of our nature. And I think these three approaches are equally important, and we should work on them in parallel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and insight, in particular, the Baha'i faith. And it is very helpful for us to understand what this relatively new faith is about. Thank you so much. So now I'd like to turn to Dr. Buathon Thienarrom. Dr. B is a holistic practitioner from Thailand with extensive knowledge in alternative medicine, Daoist practices, Tibetan medicine, and mind training. Her journey is to find a way to integrate the body, mind, and soul. With her background in nursing, psychology, and health sociology, she gradually created Zen Na Tai, a unique approach to holistic healing that allows the body to release tension, generate qi flow, and encourage a peaceful mind. She also integrates breathwork and healing sound to deepen the stillness of the mind for inner healing. Buathon has shared her passion through her healing practice with various celebrities. She said, "Life is a journey, and each breath brings greater awareness to the body, mind, and soul." Dr. B, what is holistic well-being from your perspective? And could you tell us more about your Zen Na Tai approach?
สวัสดีค่ะ from Krabi, Thailand. Thank you, Stacy and Buddhaland, and a great honor to be here to share a practice. It's a healing practice, life as a journey. Everyone have one thing that we look after and we're seeking for it. As to me, my interest in health and well-being. Yes, if we have to define that wellness is for us to overcome any health challenge, the well-being is become a lifestyle to maintain a good health. So it's a journey that we all need to understand, and we're saying practice, and each practice will bring you something for the next practice. So this is the most important. What I would like to make it more simple to understand that our existing energy here, whatever you represent, your energy is come from the state of the physical energy, mental energy, and spiritual energy. So in these three main sources of energy, sometimes we focus on physical energy or physical well-being. Sometimes we focus on mental well-being. Sometimes we focus on spiritual well-being. I think this is in life is the journey that maybe when we was young, we want to focus more on physical well-being. And later we go, we go to the journey of life, and then we know that stress is important. Mental well-being, we put more focus on mental well-being. And for me, as I'm close to 60, so I'm focused more on spiritual well-being, which is very important to understand the purpose of life, and then that keep me going through the journey. And all these three main sources of energy are physical, mental, and spiritual. And then if you look and reflect in our body, it's become a more natural elements of earth, which is reflect on muscle, flesh, and bone, water, circulation in the body, fire is digestion and also emotion as well, and also the air. So this is become to, if you look at the elements, break to basic 4 simple elements, where Ayurvedic have 3 elements, Tibetan have 3 elements. So all these is how we can look at to make it balance or make all these elements are in harmony. When these elements is in harmony, then you find lightness within yourself, you find peaceful within yourself. And the only way that to make these elements in balance is we use air elements to our own breathing. When we're able to slow down our breath, then our brainwaves slow down. When our brainwaves slow down, then, of course, when the air slow down, then the fire slow down, waters cool down, and the muscle in the body become lighter. And then in the process of in harmony within yourself. And then that is the state of healings. So this is important. Then when we are able to attain that state of healing, then you find your felt lightness, you feel more aligned. And this alignment is aligned on a physical level, and mental level, and also spiritual level. And that is actually that state of healing. And through this, if you reflect on our physical body, we have 3 minds of thinking. This is the gross mind, our daily life mind that keep thinking, So that is keep activating the energy, that thinking, and the heart is the feeling. And the abdomen, that is the emotional storage or storehouse. As you may heard that there are many research talking about this is the first brain and the abdomen is the second brain. So that is talking about stress, how stress impact in our physical body. So all these to align the 3 minds, then I use this approach as introductory of Zen Na Tai, where we work with the energetic to open up the chi energy through releasing the tension in your head. So you're able to go to the moment that you are able to slow down your thought, or even can take 1 minute to stop thinking, which could be a little hard, but of course, that is the idea that to pause and able to rest the mind and open the chest where the heart, because when we been triggered with emotions, so we get a tension that actually this tension affect the soft muscle in between the rib cage, and then that we affect to our breathing. So that with the technique of Zen Na Tai is open up and release the tension in between the rib cage. When that is open, the breath. So the mind, the head start to slow down, the chest start to open, and then we'll work on the emotional storage. That is to look at what you're storing there. Because if you look at this process of thinking, in 1 minute, we have many thoughts. Sometimes we not even complete the first thought, the second thought arise. So that in the process of not completing, then whatever we put it halfway, we store it there. So then we have a moment, then that thought come into the surface, and then we try to complete that thought. So of course, there are thoughts that also positive energy, happy thought, and also unhappy thought, and also, in general thought. So all these, if you look at the body as a container, when there is too much thought, then you don't have space. So with the work of Zen Na Tai is try to release the unnecessary. So, and then that it help you to find the space within yourself, and then that you feel lightness within.
Thank you so much, Dr. B, for sharing your insight on our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being and how your practice work. I really appreciate it. And now, John, I'd love to bring you in next. John Ballantrae, MA, author of Hamlet Revealed, The Tarot, Our Life on the Open Road, The Tarot Reader, Volumes 1 and 2, Astrology in Action. John said, a hamlet is a village without a church. So Hamlet, the play, is about finding peace, broadly speaking. Old Hamlet's solution was to become a killer, and he was murdered. Young Hamlet's path is different. The illustration on a randomly chosen tarot card will show us how to develop a fuller version of ourselves at any moment. The horoscope lets us look beyond the earth in order to handle change in a post-adjective world. John, how do you think tarot is best understood in today's spiritual landscape? Is it sacred, intuitive, or something in between? And do you see a common thread connecting tarot, astrology, numerology, and other wisdom and spiritual traditions?
Okay, hello. Thanks for having me. So I've got four, maybe 5 words. The first one is spiritual, because people have been using the word spiritual, and I used to never use the word because I didn't know what it meant. And then one day I was watching an interview with a pianist called Bill Evans, who played piano with Miles Davis, and then he had his own quintet or trio. And he said he thinks music is spiritual because somebody can listen to a piece of music, discover something about themselves that they would not have known had it not been for the music. And so I like that definition of spirituality, in that it gives you a better or a more complete understanding of the self. And this is because the word unique in English means one. There's only one. People talk, something is very unique. It's either unique or it's not. So each of us is unique. We're an individual, but there's only one of us. The problem is that we get bent out of shape by society, by rules, by general ideas about how to behave, by morality, by the government, whatever it happens to be. So how can we connect or reconnect with the true essence, or the real you behind the mask, or the real motivation that you have? And because we're all different and unique, if we try to apply a general rule, it has to be modified. Otherwise, it misses the mark. Because two people can be told, don't steal, for instance, and one person doesn't steal because they're afraid of what will happen if they do steal. Another person might have more confidence, or might be more optimistic, or more courageous maybe, and is willing to take a chance on doing something that's maybe a little bit doubtful. An example is, there's a fellow I used to know. He was about 11 years old at the end of the Second World War, and he and his mother were living in East Germany and Prussia. And the Russian army had invaded, and they had nothing to eat. And so this fellow used to sneak into the Russian camp at night and steal food from the Russians so that he could feed himself and his mother. That's stealing, but it's not as obviously clearly wrong as stealing somebody's cell phone if they're walking down the street. So I think because we're unique and we're bent out of shape, how do we get back into shape? And this is where I think the tarot comes in. And here's a card. Can you see that? I don't know. That's
yes.
This. Okay, there are 4 suits in the tarot, in the same way that I can't remember the Thai lady's name, but she was talking about fire, air, earth, and water. We've got swords, cups, coins, and batons. What to do next is going to be different for me, because of who I am and what I'm up to, and what I'm thinking, and what I'm learning about, or what I'm doing. It's going to be different for me than for Stacy, for instance. So if you pick a card at random and look at the activity or the action going on in the card, it's like you talking to you via a picture. And what you see in the card, the motion or the activity or the behavior that's shown in the picture, is a clue for you on what to do next. So it may be that that what you get is a tiny step that will make a slight difference, or it may be a major revelation that will make a big difference. So the tarot, I think, is valuable and useful because we're unique, bent out of shape, and we need... I used to teach a class in a local college on report writing, and early on in the course, I would write the word teach on the board, and I would say, how do you teach? And then I would remove the letter T at the beginning. And I would say, if you want to teach people, it has to be individual. It has to be for each individual. each individual. So if you or if somebody picks a card at random and looks at the illustration on the picture and takes some kind of guidance from the action or the activity going on in the picture, it works. And you know, if it's like you following you and you're going to do what's right for you at that moment for that particular question. And it can be different tomorrow, but the point is it's in the moment and it's right and it's valid and it works. So the second part of the question had to do with astrology and the numerology and so on. You really ought to keep them all separate, because the tarot is developed by man for mankind, whereas astrology is extraterrestrial knowledge because you're looking out beyond the stars. So I think the way I'd like to describe it is, if you can play tennis, you can probably do quite well at table tennis, and you can probably do quite well at badminton, because they're kind of the same idea where you've got an object and you're trying to get it over a net. Whereas if you're good at rugby, you won't naturally be good at tennis, let's say. And partly with tennis and badminton and table tennis, foot position and foot movement is really important. You've already got a certain amount of ability with your feet when playing tennis. You can adapt it to badminton and table tennis. So astrology and numbers and the tarot are kind of different ways of getting information about the same kinds of topics, but they're not the same, so we shouldn't mix them. Because people will often pick a card. That Five of Swords, right, the one that I showed you, this Five of Swords, people will say, okay, the Five of Swords, I don't know what it means, but swords represents the element of air. And so they take something they don't understand, the Four of Swords, and they translate it into something they also don't understand, the element of air, and it doesn't work. Whereas everybody knows what a sword is. You can attack or you can defend. You can take a sharp instrument and you can cut out dead wood if you're pruning a rose bush. So a sword can be used to simplify or to remove what's no longer valuable or no longer useful. So what do I do today for me right now? I pick a card, I get a sword card. I should look at what's going on in my life and remove the dead wood. Is one way of looking at it. There's more, or maybe I know I've been too hard on other people, so I've got a sword. Don't be so aggressive. Don't be so hostile. Or maybe I think it's time I stood up for myself, and that's what the sword would mean to me today or right now for that particular question. And the last point is T-A-R-O-T is tarot. You can rearrange the letters into T-O-A-R-T, to art. And the word art is useful and important because there's a root AR, which means an Indo-European root that means to arrange harmoniously. And that's what we get with the tarot. Whether people like it or believe it or not, it's showing us how we can rearrange ourselves in a harmonious fashion. That was it.
Thank you so much, John, for the insight and also clarification. It was very helpful. And last but not least, if I may come to you, Sairee. Sairee Chahal is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and board member. She conceptualized and founded #Women's Internet in India. She founded Fleximoms, Sheroes, and Mahila Money, all internet platforms for women, connecting them to the economic mainstream via employment, entrepreneurship, and capital, impacting over 10 million women directly and indirectly. She currently serves on the board of Unicommerce eSolutions Private Limited, Software Freedom Law Center, and Terrain, the Trust for Retailers and Retail Associates of India, funded by B.S. Nagesh. Earlier, she has served as a director on the board of Payteam Payments Bank Limited. She's a recipient of the Devi Award for Women in Leadership, Femina Achievers Award for her contribution to women's internet and technology, Cartier Award for Entrepreneurship, Editor's Choice for L'Oreal, Femina Women's Award for Women in Workforce and Business Today's Most Powerful Women in Indian Business. Sairee, as a very successful businesswoman, how has Buddhism guided your entrepreneurial journey? And in your work, how has the internet helped empower women in meaningful ways? Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conversation. As you can see from my bio, I'm basically a tech entrepreneur, and I call myself children of internet. I built my first company in 1999, and actually have been working since I was maybe 19 or 20. I built my first startup from college, and I think the thing is, when you are an entrepreneur or when you are building something, a lot of life is very, it's like a roller coaster. Your highs are very high and your lows are very low. And of course, that's not it. There's a full life. I'm a mom. My daughter's in college now. But all the years when I was building my companies, she was also a child. So, it was, and then I had a full family to take care of. So it was a full life. I think one of the things that happened to me was that realization that you don't have to handle it all at once. You can just, handle it one breath at a time. You can show up one moment at a time. You can just show up for work one day at a time, and it sort of goes from there. I got lucky. I have a spiritual teacher who's a Buddhist. So he kind of introduced me to a lot of very, if I may say, easy to learn and easy to imbibe practices, So, and in some ways, I think there's a lot I've taken away from Buddhism. So I'm not a practicing Buddhist, I'm not even a practicing religious person, but I'm deeply invested in some ideas. And I think some of those ideas is the idea of community, the idea of safe space, the idea of your own version of balance, the idea of karma, and just I think a lot of learnings from just listening to my own teacher. So I think along the journey, just knowing that you're not the first person dealing with something or building something. Humanity has shared experiences. Our pains are similar, our joys are also very similar. But I think what religion does is it sort of makes it commonplace. It kind of says, hey, you're not alone. You are able to learn from what a lot of other people have been through in their lives. And as an entrepreneur, that was very encouraging to me and very helpful to me. And as far as I think working with women is concerned, I think the common thread here is community and safe space. So India is a hugely gender unequal country. And when internet was very new in India, I started building, in Buddhism, you have the concept of Sangha, which is basically a congregation. And I think there's a concept of congregation potentially in every religion in one way or the other, whether it's the church or whether it is something else. I started building these platforms which were very focused on building access and safe spaces. So, for example, we built this company called Shiros where, it was a social network for women, but it was basically to find your own path. It wasn't a gaming or a meme network, but it was more to do with, hey, what is your personal story and what can you gain from it? And then I think that has sort of grown. And I think more and more as I go on in my life, my belief in building safe spaces, my belief in building community resources, and what in technology terms we call open source, things that are once built can be accessed and used by everyone, is very strong. So in some ways, I think Buddhism is an open source religion. It's basically available to anyone and everyone. I have never done anything that's directly, religious, or it's, but I think I just found somebody who was willing to share, and I could, wean off it. And I think there's a lot of kindness in it. There's a lot of, understanding of human pain and human suffering. And I guess just knowing that you're not the only one is enough. It's shared, it's common, and you can deal with it by just, breathing one minute at a time. So I think the journey's been phenomenal, and I think it's never ending. But it's kept me very anchored. I've really learned to, I guess, take everything with a, pinch of joy, whether it's work or outside work. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Sairee. I can feel your kindness and compassion. And thank you all for those thoughtful and generous opening reflections. And now I'd like to bring our audience into the conversation. We have many great minds joining us today, from leaders in tech and business to art professionals and Buddhist monks. And we'll just start with a very quick poll. What brought you to this roundtable today? Please just select the option that resonates most with you. There's no right or wrong answer. That will help us to get a sense of the collective intention in this room. And you're also welcome to share more thoughts in the chat. And I've seen some great chats and questions. With this context, I'd like to open up the conversation more broadly. I'll be asking a few general questions, and hope all of you will have something to say. We're conscious of our time here, so maybe it's better we just go around and you can just say something in one sentence. So the first question is that in your work, what are the most prominent challenges you see in modern living? What do you think or feel that people today are seeking? Shall we start with Father Reginald?
Put on the spot a little bit.
Or maybe in your chaplain work, like young people come to you and what kind of questions they ask you?
Yeah. Well, one question I think that resonates with many students, but many people of different faiths that I've encountered is the quest for happiness. And happiness is obviously understood in many different ways, but beneath any quest for, I don't know, money or status or wealth, there's a search for happiness.
What about your observation, Dr. B? I'm sure a lot of people, celebrities, young people come to you for
Yes.
peace of mind.
Yes, everyone's looking for peace. They're looking for focus, and they're looking for inner strength. Because to be able to get into peace, they must have inner strength. And of course, at the end, discipline into the practice. Yeah.
And John, people come to you for tarot reading all the time, including myself.
Okay, I that's a difficult question to answer. But I think that I like to tell people, or to give them an idea of what's going on right now and what's important right now, rather than an overarching ultimate truth about anything. I think we go in that direction at our own speed and in our own way. But I think what's valuable, or what's more valuable, is what do I do right now, whatever it happens to be, in whatever area of life I'm concerned about. So I tend to go, or to begin with, where are you at right now, and what's going on, and what can happen, and what's a good thing to do, and what will bring it about, and what will stop it happening. which doesn't answer your question, but that's what I would say.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Professor Palmer, what's your observation with your experience with both Daoism and the Baha'i faith?
Well, just thinking about, I think in general, I think a big concern that people have, it may or may not be directly expressed in this way, but actually there's a sense of not knowing what the future holds for us. There was a time when people had a clear sense of where the world was going, and so their life took a certain could find its direction within a broader sense of where the world was going. And now I think people don't really have a sense of where the world is going, and so that leads to a lot of anxiety in people's individual life.
Thank you. And Sairee, you build many communities for women. What kind of challenges do they encounter in their life?
I think one of the things we see is there is a whole treadmill of daily life, I think, for a lot of people who are trying to, get by, raise their families, keep their jobs. There is a lot of complexity and constantly increasing in the modern life, resources, access to resources, I think a huge amount of technological disruptions. And I think at this point, we're facing a major disruption from AI as we speak. And I think being able to navigate this massive treadmill that one is constantly on is something I think a lot of people want to figure it out, right? This is, in the corporate world, they call it work-life balance, but we all know it doesn't exist. It's very skewed. It's very, hard to achieve. And I think everybody's looking for what, in, again, technology terms, they call it load balancer, like where can I go, which allows me to sort of, put down my burden, and sort of find a moment of connection, find a moment of safety, find a moment of not having to live with acute complexity and uncertainty. So when people walk into a spiritual realm, their problems don't go away, but their ability to deal with it just gets better. They sort of come out with a lot of perspective. And I think we see the same. I work with a lot of women, who are handling a lot. They're handling very traditional families, big families, raising children, keeping a career, taking care of older people, also managing societal expectations. So in middle of all this, just having somewhere to go to that feels like a place for them, a place for me where I'm not judged. I'm just a human being. I'm a child of God. I'm just somebody who was put on earth, and I have a place. I think that's something that everybody's seeking to say. Hey, what is that one thing that can help anchor me?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the challenges in modern life is quite different from the technology and internet, and also, like David said, uncertainty of the future, and we have questions within ourselves and also about our environment, and that's why I think people are turning to more spiritual pursuit because they want to understand things that beyond their control. And I just got the result of our first poll. Actually, 42% of our audience is hoping to seek spiritual growth here, and also 20% are curious about different wisdom traditions, and also 20% are just exploring, which is great. and 8% are trying to learn how to manage stress and anxiety. So let's move on quickly. Just now, John clarified some of the misconceptions we have about tarot and astrology and how people tend to mix them all together. And but I think many ancient wisdom traditions are misunderstood in a modern context. Do you have any thing to share that you feel these are the misconceptions about certain traditions that we need to be very careful about? Maybe we start with David, because I remember watching your talk on individual spiritualism, where in the West, I think also in the East too, people just bring everything that they feel spiritual and kind of mix them to grow spiritually. Do you think that is the right path?
Right. So your question was about misconceptions about ancient spiritual traditions. And actually, I'd say there are two kinds of misconceptions. And one is the idea that these are irrelevant traditions coming from the past, a lot of highly complex doctrines and rituals that don't really have much connection to our life. So that's certainly one misconception, which comes from not being aware of, in a sense, the spiritual meaning that is wrapped up in a lot of these outward forms that are seen to be incompatible or not so relevant with the life today. So that's one dimension. But then there's the other, the flip side of that, which is then people shake off all of those outward forms, or some of them, and then they pursue a purely individualistic path of spirituality, which is aligned with in a sense, an ideology of individualism, but which is also a general sociological transformation that's going on as traditional social structures have become loosened or fallen apart. Then we remain as isolated individuals in this world. And so then one of the tendencies is then to actually even further radicalize or go further down that path of individualization without understanding concurrently to that is a path of connection, and finding new forms of or revived forms of community connection with other people. So I think this is something that is the biggest challenge, I think, in the spiritual path in the contemporary world.
Thank you. We do have some questions. I think I will. There are some very good questions. I think it's very relevant to what we're discussing now. One is from Uli. What is the key thing an agnostic person should do as first step to join the spiritual world that person is so critical about? Who wants to start? Maybe Father Chua, would you like to take this question?
Sure. Just one thought that comes to me is that just from the way the question is phrased, one first step perhaps could be to see agnosticism as not an obstacle to joining any spiritual tradition, but in fact a great asset, because it actually allows for an openness and an ability perhaps to question and to seek in a very honest way. And I think that's for me, I've encountered some people who think that, well, if I'm not really sure personally about what I'm interested in or what I believe, then perhaps I wouldn't be welcome in some spiritual traditions. When I think my experience is that I think a lot of contemporary religious traditions, communities, are just waiting for new members to join, and they are very keen to actually to welcome people, even people of no particular belief or tradition. And I think that also reflects the changing landscape that we're in, that religions are no longer these institutions that are wielding a lot of power. I think it is true perhaps in some places that there are, I'm living in the UK, and I know Anglicanism is still, tied with the state and so on. But for many religions, I think, or many churches, it's not coming from a place of power, and there's a real desire to actually welcome people from any walk of life and to share these traditions that actually are kind of being lost as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Sairee.
Now, beautifully said. I think as somebody who probably did the same, I come from very a-religious family, no practicing a religion really. But I think it's not always, creating an attribution. I think there's so much to choose from, and there's also so much of what, if I may say, spiritual wealth, and it's and that wealth is also agnostic. So if I may say, for example, breath work or meditation or even running or going for a walk, right? Like there's so much of literature in Buddhism about going for a walk, but the truth is, it is such a simple human thing, right? Or music or chanting or journaling. I think whatever is start whatever appeals to you, and I think you'll find your way. And like it's, you don't have to imagine the whole ladder, right? It's one step at a time. Just climb the ladder that's in front of you, what calls out to you. And of course, the path keeps opening up, and you have your own spiritual journey. And it need not look like somebody else's. It can be very your own, like your own DNA.
Thank you. Yes, I think what I hear is first, spirituality can manifest everywhere, so it may not be a very drastic action. And also, I think the current landscape of spirituality or different Buddhist traditions are much more open. So we're free to explore and we're free to make friends, and it's okay if we don't commit. I think. It's a beautiful journey ahead of us. I also have the question. I also saw Anka asking this same question. If you could recommend one practice that could potentially improve your lives, what would that be? Dr. B, could you share with us some tips, practical tips to improve our daily lives?
At this moment, I run a few online chanting groups, and I can see that help improve people's life in terms of first, the psychology of chanting is people have space to express themselves and able to transform that into the sacred vibration. So, and that is that through that chanting is vibrating also on the abdominal area, and then that's include the chi flow that improve the energy flow within the body. So in terms of physical, and also we keep chanting, it's also a form of dynamic meditation. That this time it's hardly to focus on silent meditation. So this will be a screening gate for people to practice and able to develop further. Yeah.
Yes. Earlier this year, we had a 5 lights yoga meditation taught by Kampu Tsering. He's also in the audience. I think the idea was quite similar. Like, of course, we say, we meditate, everyone meditates, but it's actually very difficult to focus now. So to use the sound or maybe your own singing and visualizing lights, it will help us to better experience and benefit more from the meditation practice. At the end of the day, it's about our awareness. So great. Thank you so much, Dr. B. And a question for John. Some of the people here are interested in tarot cards. And one question is that, what can we do daily in order to expand our tarot skills besides picking a card and pondering on it? Thank you.
What can you do daily? Bob Dylan once said, somebody asked him what his biggest influences were. And he said something along the lines of, everything you do and see can influence you. So I think rather than, can we go back to the first two questions we had? Because I would like to say, learn to trust yourself. And so instead of looking for answers out there, trust yourself. Recognize that the things you tell yourself might be good, they might be bad. You're not going to know until you actually find out, until you actually do it. So rather than wait and doubt yourself, because doubt comes from an Indo-European root that means two, TWO. When you doubt something, you've got two minds. So rather than doubt, pick one side or the other and follow it through and see what happens. If you like it, good. If you don't like it, don't do it. So keep it simple. But what you're doing, I think, is trusting yourself. So what do you do with it to learn the tarot? You do what you want. You see what works. You buy a rider deck of tarot cards. It's $20 maybe, and there are pictures. And you look at the pictures and you guide yourself. I know it sounds maybe a little bit vague, but it boils down to what I said in the beginning of my position is that we're bent out of shape. How do we connect or reconnect with the real us? And we do it once, as the Indian lady, I can't remember your name, I can't remember anybody's name, but she mentioned about one step at a time, and thank you, a ladder, and you step up the ladder one rung at a time, and that's so obvious, and it works. So why do we turn our back on simple truth? So how do you learn the tarot? I don't know. You learn it. You follow your own path. You do what works for you and see what works, and then do more of it or do less of it or adapt it. Because we're all individual, we're all unique, we're all at our own particular point on our own particular path. And so what's right for me to do next is not going to be right for you. So how do you navigate that? You, one step at a time, you climb one rung on the ladder at a time. They talk about 1% improvement per day. It's a Japanese concept called Kaizen, I think. And so if you make a small change every day, a small habit, you're improving every day. And at the end of a month or the end of 6 months, you're miles different. Rather than look for, I don't know, ultimate truth. You get there eventually. Maybe not in this lifetime, but it doesn't really matter. I don't want to keep talking. I'll stop. I was going to talk about Genesis and then the value of Genesis chapter 1, and how, because God created the earth was without form and void. So does that mean we're supposed to create form and fill the earth, or are we supposed to be, as earth was created, to be without form and empty? So what happens if we achieve emptiness? Is not what do we then create, but what do we understand? What comes to us? What discovers us when we experience emptiness? Instead of turning our back on the void and on emptiness, why don't we do as we're told? And that is, be empty. It's kind of Buddhist or meditation, or to achieve that state of non-being. I don't know what you call it, but it's more like, this goes back to what are we ignoring about old religions? We're ignoring an individual understanding of Genesis chapter 1. We move on way too quickly beyond, what does in the beginning mean? In the beginning might mean the first thing we need to know is not how did the earth begin, how did the cosmos begin? Our minds are too small to understand that. But the first thing we need to know is something, God, we don't know what God is, created which means to bring form to, or to cause growth. It's like the earth was already there. It just grew. Anyway, I could go on for hours, but I've stopped.
Thank you so much, John. I think especially when you are talking about don't doubt, because when you doubt, you have two minds and you can never move forward. Everyone nodded. Actually, I also have a story to share. My Buddhist master is at Wutaishan, and he wrote a calligraphy, 今日, today. So then he started to explain. When people see today, they usually just think, oh, it means seize the moment, seize today. But actually, there's a second layer is do not doubt, do not hesitate. I think this is the problem that we all have today, because we have so much information, this digital overload, and it seems that anything is possible. We have so many options, but we're just kind of burdened with our thoughts and just sitting here, not doing that much. So this is from Father Reginald. I have a question and thought that could be interesting for us to discuss if there's time. Yes, we do. How to balance individualism and community, Sangha from our different traditions, as the importance of self and the importance of community is something was mentioned a couple of times. That's a great question. Who would like?
Just to add, the context for this was actually when I think when Professor David, when you're sharing about the one of these misconceptions, I think that can come from taking a very individualistic approach to spirituality and kind of casting off the traditions and the things associated perhaps with the community aspect of traditional religion. And then that made me think about how, that kind of element of personal choice kind of interacts with kind of being part of a community where you don't necessarily choose everything. Because, so in the context, let's say, of St. Dominic, medieval Western Europe, where there was very little choice to be had, let's say, for faith, if you're, let's say, growing up in maybe in medieval France or something. So in a certain way, like the addition of a new religious order, provides a kind of element of individual choice, or maybe adds to individualism in a way that from within the community. So you could go to your local parish, or you could maybe go to see some of these Dominican friars or these Franciscans, and they're part of the one religion, but by introducing that element of personal choice, probably it kind of created maybe a healthy balance and a healthy competition. I mean, maybe something leaning in the direction of that modern individual choice, but maybe not too much. But yeah, it seems to me like it's kind of a tricky balance, either doing it from within a religious tradition or maybe from the other direction of how to introduce more of that community element, if it's just purely individual choice. So yeah, I'm just really interested to learn from some other perspectives on this question.
Yeah, David, do you have any feedback on this question?
Yeah, well, I think right. I mean, I think it's a really important question, and I think my starting point to think about this is actually, as John was saying, everybody is actually absolutely unique, right? And so, part of our destiny, our path of growth is the realization and the acting out of what we have been created to accomplish in this world, which is absolutely unique. So each one of us is an absolutely unique gem that has been placed in this world to shine a unique light into this world. And so part of what we're here, what our life is about discovering what that unique light is and how it can shine out and bring something unique and distinctive to the world. And so then the question is, but we can't do that alone. We're not alone in this world. And we are only one color of, the light has no color. Each of us has a unique and distinctive color. And so we need to learn how to communicate, learn with, live with, work with people who have who are shining all these different colors. And we need a structure to do that. And this is the problem that now our world is in, because we actually have absolute freedom. Spiritually, we have absolute freedom anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter what the political regime is. As you were saying, Father Reginald, churches don't have the kind of authority they used to have. And even authoritarian governments in various places don't have spiritual authority on people. So no matter what the outside structure is, actually in their hearts, people are completely free to think, and to follow or whatever, So we are living in a world of absolute freedom, spiritually. But we need a structure actually for us to grow spiritually together, to communicate and to cooperate, to build community together. And so I think that's what we're looking for. What kind of structure is the appropriate structure? In the past, we had very rigid structures. And so we've reached a stage where, and this is part of the collective evolution of humanity, where we all have more capacities to be able to independently release all those capacities into the world. We are no longer in a world and that can live under rigid structures. So we need to find flexible structures. And I think that's what humanity is looking for. We're looking for that spot where we have structured forms of interactions that are conducive to our spiritual growth, that are just, right, that are based on justice, that allow us freedom, and yet that also give us a frame within which we can prevent the ego from overblowing itself or thinking that it's in the center of the world. So yeah, I mean, I think this is where we're at. This is where we're at. And it's interesting, as you were saying, that in a sense, for example, Dominican Order was born in one context where there was very hard structure, but now it's a completely free choice to join the Dominican Order, right? So, one can actually find, entering that structure can actually be an expression of a free choice. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I have some other questions here. Let me see, where should we, how should we explore this? I see people asking, so in the 21st century, many people facing problems of loneliness, anxiety, depression, wealth gap. How to resolve this in a spiritual way? I think there are two folds. First is, how do we handle these negative feelings or the injustice in our society, and how we can solve this in a spiritual way collectively. Who would like to comment on that? Maybe Sairee, from your business and technology perspective.
Yeah, I think, my spiritual teacher told me that it's not your job to fix everything that you see that is wrong with the world, but it's your job to fix yourself, so do what you can for yourself and on yourself. It's the same thing, one of the problem statements we say in businesses. What is your focus area? What is that one problem you're going to solve? And no business, no human being can solve everything. It's humanly impossible, but you can try to solve. To begin with, I think the journey of self-awareness, the journey of finding your own peace, and it may not always come from the solution or to a very giant problem, and I think humanity is imperfect, and there is a lot of strife, there is sorrow, there is violence, so the world is a complex space. And, it may seem like that everything is black and white, but it is not, so the perspectives we think are terribly wrong are probably, somebody's, absolutely rightful perspectives as well, even though they may seem morally very divergent from us. So I think my answer, or at least my whole thing, is to focus on what you can help, and sometimes it's just really small rituals, and even in the business world, you get up in the morning sometimes and you see all these big advancements, a lot of announcements, M&A. There's just a lot of things going on, and then you basically get through the morning, you do your yoga, you do your gratitude, and you get yourself to your desk and you do what you can that day. And that's really it, I think. And you do it the next day, and you do it the next day. And you also sort of, you can't take on everything, but you can take on what you think is your calling, or things that really call you out. And that's really it. Like, pick your battles, as they say.
Thank you, Sairee. Okay, last question for Dr. B. When do we know that we are genuinely grow spiritually? So what are the signs and markers that we know that, okay, we're doing it right, according to your practice?
Observation is very important during the practice. And of course, if you practice regularly, you will see some change, either from you actually more relaxed, calm down, more focused. You're able to increase your inner strength and able to manifest. Simple as that. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I have one last question, a big one for everyone. Perhaps the most important. Please tell us in one sentence, what is the meaning of life for you? Shall we start with John?
Life is LIFE. So life is about file, FILE. So we take our position in life, our situation, and we organize it and we categorize it. Life is also LIE. So forget the F for the moment, but people lie all the time. Wittgenstein said he once said that he liked the idea of a silent religion because silence does not tell any lies. And I kind of like that. So also, life contains IF. This is more than one sentence. Life is IF. So it's like, if we do this, what's going to happen? Or if we don't do it, what's going to happen? And so it's kind of about exploration as well. Okay. And anything else you can make up of the four letters FILE.
Thank you. Father Reginald, what is your view? What is the meaning of life for you?
Well, I'll say something that maybe after this conversation, perhaps is also a Daoist answer, which is unity. Because for me, the meaning of life is unity, not just with myself or with others. Ultimately, it's unity with that which is deepest and at the bottom of all things, which from the Christian perspective is God. There is also a God who loves us into being and is also there seeking that unity also with us.
And David, for you?
Right. So my answer will also be an answer to the question, what is the key thing an agnostic person should do? Right. So the first sentence in the obligatory prayer, or one of the daily obligatory prayers in the Baha'i faith says, I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. And so to know God is the purpose of my life. And how do we know God? Well, one is through revealed scripture, and another way is through knowing. One knows God through everything that is beautiful in this world. And so for somebody who's agnostic, every time you look at a beautiful scene, something or a beautiful act of love that is moving, and you say, so this that is a prayer that you are saying. You have come close to God through that experience of beauty. So this is coming to know the divine, coming to know God. And the other part is to worship thee, right? And so what does it mean to worship God? So on the one hand, that is prayer, but there's a deeper meaning of that, which is to honor, right? So to honor everything that is beautiful in this world, to honor everything that is lovely, all the goodness in this world. So the purpose of my life is to honor all of the goodness that exists into the world and to nurture this goodness. Yes, so that's what it is.
Thank you. That was very beautiful. And Sairee?
I think very simply put, I feel it's finding our connection to the universe. I think we all relate to life differently, and we all have a different viewing lens, a different DNA, if I may. But I do find, in Buddhism, you have Shil, Samadhi, Panya, the 8 principles. I find that very beautiful and very, it's a nice framework for life, basically. We don't know what is the meaning or purpose of life, but as an individual, I think our job is to find our connection to the universe, and that's a very nice framework to interpret the universe.
Thank you. Dr. V.
Yes. For me, the only simple explanation that I feel is learn to connect to your heart. Because heart holds a lot of informations. And also when the heart is in peace or in love, then you align yourself with the higher energy or your higher self. And then from there to find love, to find joy in your heart. Of course, as I'm Buddhist, I use the Buddhist way approach to look at that, like the 5 precepts, the 8-fold Noble Path, and that kind of stuff, just to make sure that you have to be able to have in a frame, which is have less distractions. And then we have less distraction, then the alignment that you have, or we say grounding to yourself, is much better. Yeah.
Okay, on that note, thank you all for being part of today's roundtable. We're truly grateful to our panelists and to everyone in the audience for engagement and reflections. It has been a very rich and inspiring conversation. Before we close, we'd love your input on what you like Buddhaland to explore next. Please take a moment to respond to this quick poll. Your feedback will help us shape future events and content. Thank you again for joining us today. May the time and presence that we spend together continue to inspire your journey toward mental well-being, spiritual growth, and meaningful connection. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you. I wish you a good rest of the day and night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.